Thanks, Louise, and such a pleasure to be meeting all of you and to be sharing this platform. So you've all got your portraits with you. If you could, do you have physical copies, or are they on your laptops at the same time? Are you using the same machine as we speak?
Yeah, laptop.
On the laptop, on the same. Okay, so what my goal will be now will be to take you through the system so that out of this you'll be able to have your own deeper dive. You'll also notice in your portraits, because all the portraits are very customizable, is that we've integrated certain pages of coaching questions, so that will also help guide you as you're reading the portrait, as well as you'll have a separate workbook that I understand Louise already has provided you with, and that will give you more of the narrative and the background to understand. So you may have to use them kind of side by side to really maximize the potential of the portrait. So clicking the right button here. Ah, interesting. Keeps going on to the other screen. Not sure why it's doing that. Try again. So we call this personality science, and really because we do integrate a lot of digital innovative technology. So as Louise was saying, now that you've done your questionnaire, you have your splash portrait, a workbook. You also now have ability to access your own splash on your mobile phone and use that to compare and contrast your portrait with your new partner, but of course beyond that, wherever you want to build relationships. And then at the end of kind of mid-July, we're going to be offering you a digital spark coach so that you'll be able to be taken through a process of a deeper dive into your portrait, and that you'll have as a gift to use independently as you continue your own growth journey. Now, when you completed the questionnaire, we asked you 144 questions against these 24 qualities that we actually measured at 3 different faces, 3 different personas. Your underlying, which is your natural preference, your everyday, which is your persona that adapts to survive and succeed in your environment, and then a 3rd persona, which is slightly the darker side of us, under stress possibly, or when we're just a bit tired, and we call that the overextended. So that's the depth page where you're going to do all your work. To help you get to that complexity, we kind of aggregate back from the 72 to the 24 qualities, to 8 aspects, and then to the 4 colors. So we're going to start off with the simplicity of the 4, and then we build up stage by stage, and then this is where you go into a deeper dive around self-awareness. When it comes to looking at engaging from a communication relationship perspective, we come back to the 8 aspects. So we try and really kind of have that connection of simplicity, but also having the availability for depth as and when you need it. Now, all of our work is based on Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning, in that if you just read this quote for a moment, and you would have seen this on the front cover of your portrait, between stimulus and response, there is a space. In that space is our power to choose our response, and in our response lies our growth and our freedom. So what we're saying here is that there is an opportunity to move from our unconscious reactive self to a conscious response. So even though we are presenting to you your personality, we call it a portrait because we know it's very movable. It's based really on a series of habits that have been created over time, that have been reinforced, bit of nature nurture kind of embedded in there. But we are absolutely accountable for shifting and changing and moving as our environment demands us to be. So there's a lot of neuroscience that we haven't got time to share now, but it's around the neuroplasticity of the brain means that we can create new habits, new ways of being, new qualities, new personality preferences to make sure that we are thriving and achieving our potential. So we always look at how's it impacting yourself, your personal well-being, your relationships with others, your key stakeholders, as well as your effectiveness in terms of your performance. So I just wanted to set that context that this is a reflection of who you are now. Let's use this to look at your strengths. Can you amplify them? Possible weak spots, what do you need to transform? and recognizing that there's more dynamic movement. This is about having the awareness so you know what direction you want to move towards. So you may have seen on your front cover, you had a splash. Now, if you, unfortunately, you haven't got a physical copy, but if you also put yours up, it's likely you'll see all different colors on the front page. This is a reflection of your dominant 2 colors. So remember I said we integrate simplicity with complexity. So there is value at the fore, because it's all about how do I adapt my behavior and to connect and build rapport with others. So it's really powerful to know, where's this person right now? It's not personal, it's personality. How can I get off my mountaintop, travel up another person, see where they're coming from, so I can effectively connect in that moment. However, you turn the page of your portrait to page 4 and we see, oh my gosh, I'm much more than 4. In fact, I'm a combination of 24. Now this is the same word cloud for the person who owned this portrait. It happens to be one of you, and I won't tell you who, but the person who owns it will see it. And the bigger and the bolder these words, the more that you've claimed them. And so can you see, instead of seeing all red and blue on this page, we're seeing some greens and yellows, collaborative, conceptual. So other colors are coming up. And what this is saying is that we are all so multifaceted. We shift, we move, we change, we're responding to our environment, we're reacting according to our mood. But it's that understanding of, at a quality level, gives us that depth to understand ourselves at a deeper level. So if I'm going to encourage you to please start off by reading your Inner Spark pages. It's 3 pages. It's a summary of your whole portrait. People love especially the 3rd page, which looks at your communication style and your leadership. And you can just highlight, what really speaks to you and what do you want to use to communicate to others, about your needs as well as your value. As I said, we aggregate back to simplicity. So just to tell you very high level, if you look at your workbook, it will go into depth. But high level, the red, and this again links back to that portrait I just showed you, the red is about being very task orientated. We've got to deliver high standards that I set for myself, but also setting for others. It's about achievement of results, can be highly strategic. When the yellow is secondary, it really feeds into this whole aspect of innovation, imagination, creativity, conceptual, abstract thinker, going beyond what's just in front of you. So this would actually be probably a perfect portrait for your intrapreneurial community and entrepreneurial. Then the next one is the yellow, is the blue. The blue is more grounded around process, evidence-based, practical. How do we do things? Are we doing it according to process? Are we doing it in the right way? So they're more reflectors, they're thinkers, their energy is much more contained. You won't necessarily see how they're feeling because they're quite poker faced. And under stress, they can also become quite withdrawn. But they are the ones that are holding the flag for ensuring that whatever big ideas are out there, they can be translated into something that's practical and that can be implemented in a sustainable way. So they'll be looking at resources and budget and personnel. So it's really about a combination of all. And then we bring the green. We call this empowering archetype. And this is about the people aspect. So I may have this amazing new idea that I want to put in there, but have I got the buy-in? Have I thought about the impact on the people and how they're going to engage with this and implement it? So we move then from 4 to 8 aspects. And the 8 aspects can be demonstrated best on the Splash app. So after this, I'm going to ask you to download this Splash app. It looks like this on your phone, and I've just done a short video to show you, just to demonstrate how to use it. But it's very straightforward.
Hello, welcome to the Lumina Splash app. I'm Nicole Sorrell, and I'm going to compare my portrait with my husband's, Alan, in order to show you how to use the app. So the first thing to do is download the Splash app, and then open your portrait. And if you go to the very back page, you'll find this QR code. And if you just hold your camera up, it will eat up your whole portrait immediately, and then your splash will appear. You can tap on the splash in the middle, and it will give you information about how you show up against the 8 aspects. And if you want more information, can you see it says at the top, read more, and then it gives you more detail. Now, The fun part is to compare your portrait with someone else's. Could be someone you know or someone new to you, but either way, you want to improve your relationship and find some good, clear ways of communicating. So if you look on the top right of the screen, it says compare. I'm tapping on compare, then it invites me to compare with another. Click on continue. I can either scan their splash code or I can share mine, and then they'll receive the QR code which they can upload. Once you've uploaded other people's splashes, you can find them down the bottom here in this scroll. So I'm going to click on my own so that now mine will be superimposed on my husband's. And what we can see is a beautiful butterfly. Why? Because we are psychological opposites. You can see I'm very high and inspiration driven, whereas Alan is on the opposite, the discipline driven. He's high on introverted, whereas I'm high on extroverted. So naturally, this can lead to quite a number of challenges, seeing the world so differently. But it also provides clear opportunities for embracing difference, for valuing difference, and for personal growth. Alan helps me to be more considered in my thinking, in my pace, and I give him the opportunity to be more open his heart and be more spontaneous and see things from different perspectives. If I tap on it, it tells me very clearly what have we got in common and where are we different. Very useful really as a start of a dialogue to really create a safe environment, something that's a bit fun, and then you can get into a very meaningful conversation around what's working in the relationship, what isn't. If it's a new relationship, getting to know each other. How can I best communicate with you so that we can really create a powerful relationship and communication between us? There's an additional level of complexity if you're interested. If you look at the bottom left, you'll see a plus sign. I'm tapping that plus sign, and it gives me the 3 personas. When you look at your portrait, we'll be looking at the 3 personas at the 24 quality levels. At this stage, it looks at the 3 personas from an 8 aspect perspective.
I think I'm actually going to stop it there, if that's okay. I think that gives you enough to get started. So if you can download the Splash app, and then you'll see it just says, can I have access to your camera? And you put your QR code, eats it up. And then once you're in there, you can compare it with your coaching partner. And any questions from anybody? Do you want to just, are you all with me? Can you just kind of wave or thumbs up? You're all doing okay? All right, thank you. Sorry, I'm doing this very fast just because of time.
So I'm just going to interject, Nicole. Has everybody had a chance to download the Splash app?
No, I just did it now.
Great. And anybody had a chance to upload the portrait using the QR code? Great. Thanks, Dorian.
Okay.
Anybody else? Great. Thanks, Edward.
So it just will ask you, can we have access to your camera, and just turn to the last page of your portrait and you eat that up. And the good part happens when you start comparing with each other. So I'm moving now beyond the splash, and what you'll notice is that for each of the 8 aspects, there are 3 qualities that are related to that. And in your portrait on page 15, it then gives you the definitions of each of those words, and there's more detail in the workbook. So it's important to know when we look at the qualities, what are we specifically speaking about, and how that changes when we look at the overextended as well. So these are the 3 personas that we're getting to the most important part. The underlying everyday overextended, your being, doing, and overdoing. Underlying shoes of self, natural preference, what you enjoy. So it gives us a context to understand the other graphs. Every day is your adaptive self, how you survive, succeed in your environment, and also maybe how others tend to see you. Overextended, as you can see in this picture, is just tantrum or breakdown. I'm just not coping right now. So it tends to be more of an impulsive reaction. You've lost your resilience due to maybe stress or tiredness, but sometimes we're consistently overextended in a specific area because we don't have the competence to do it any differently. So ideally, you want your overextended to be low. But we're human, and we'll all have high overextensions. It's just about having the awareness of it so that we can manage it. So this is where ideally we'd love you to get to, is when you look at your 24 quality page, what is it you want to dial down and what is it you want to dial up. So I'm going to translate this for you. So we look at different patterns, key qualities, conscious efforts or amplifications, these wonderful hidden treasures and weak spots. So I'm just going to take you through each of these so that you could do the same on your own portrait. So first of all, we look at your key strengths. Now, often people are not even aware or unwilling to acknowledge their unique gifts. And I think this is the time to really stop and actually say, actually, I'm quite good at these things. I own them. And I can see how they've enabled my success to date. The reason why I'm so effective and in my position right now is because I use, maybe I'm highly logical or reliable or radical, whatever it is for you. These are the natural strengths that need to be celebrated and used. Then we come to the, I call them enablers, or developed strengths. So maybe the areas that you did not have naturally at the underlying level, but you've honed them over time. They've been really important. Your environment's demanded them from you. You've developed it, and now you use it well. Now, if you're just going up maybe from 5 to 10, may still take a lot of effort and maybe be quite draining. But this is kind of going from unconscious incompetence to unconscious competence, a new habit. But anything in the everyday is effective use of that quality. The hidden treasures, which I know is Louise's favorite, is at the underlying level when you have this untapped talent, and it's about, but for some reason which you need to discover, it's been suppressed. Maybe because the environment hasn't demanded it. So I know you're out there saying, driving innovation and big picture thinking, that very much up until recently, it hasn't been something that's been rewarded or encouraged. So what I find when I work with a lot of business leaders is they're all down the bottom of our mandala around red, blue, which is discipline driven, focus on the process, focus on the task, and a big void space around this big picture thinking, yellow, and also often the green as well around collaborative. They'll espouse and say, this is critical for us, but there'll be no action around it. And when they look at that gap, they think, well, okay, there needs to be a movement here. They go to their portraits and they say, well, okay, who has some of these yellow qualities at an underlying level that we can activate? So for this portrait, this person here is very strongly using a lot of the yellow qualities, but sometimes I may see high underlying, then low for everyday and overextended, because it hasn't been reinforced. And now I suppose part of what you're driving is, hey guys, this is relevant, this is critical. Our future depends on it. How can we activate it? So this page is kind of incorporating all of the different strengths, whether they are natural, developed, or just underlying. And it's quite useful for you just to kind of draw those blocks on that page and just to stop for a moment, reflect and think back, okay, this has been my journey and this is what's worked for me. It's also really interesting to look at where our weak spots lie, because some of them could be completely sabotaging us. And I look at mine over time, and depending on the perspective that I bring at any moment in time, I see it very differently, and there's different areas for me to tweak. So wherever we're at, there's always areas for us to move. So one could be weak, the other will be overextended. So where do you have low qualities, low underlying, low everyday? Now, it could be that you don't need that. You don't want to be cautious. I would imagine that wouldn't necessarily match your your desired profile. So maybe say, fine, I don't need cautious. There's enough cautious in the team or in the world. I want to be much more radical. I want to drive change. So you kind of tick that off. Perfect. You don't want to be jack of all trades. But there may be one weakness that is tripping you up. For example, reliability could be one. This is about delivering to commitments. If that's very low, I work with people, independent kind of consultants, who just never send out the invoices because of their reliability is so low, and then their business faults. So, it's around recognizing, where are you low? Is that fine, or is it a derailer? So for this portrait I've pulled up, this does not belong to anybody here. Very high in all the reds. Great energy around driving for results, but it's questionable or challenging when you're also high in the overextended, because it means there's no boundary around the red. It's just kind of a wild use of red. It's used well, get the job done brilliantly, but also they can get triggered very easily if it's not done according to their standard or on time, or they feel people haven't been their word. They can lose it, become angry, seeking conflict, argumentative. And without having this mediation of the green, this is about the listening, the seeking harmony, being collaborative, being empathetic. You can see here it's pretty flatlined and nothing there happening on an everyday level. That can be quite overwhelming for others. So it's all about, there's no right and wrong for the portrait. It's around looking at it in the balance of all the qualities together. We talk about the top 4 are often around your relationship style, looking at how does one show up with others. Then we look at the thinking style, the work style, the thinking style, and then the interactive style. But as you work with it and with the workbook, and if you can go through the Smart Coach as well, it will all become really clear for you. And I find just by drawing the blocks, it helps go through it step by step. I spoke about the overextended. Yes, it can get ugly when we overextend ourselves, depending on our level of emotional intelligence and whether we're able to, sorry, that's my daughter storming in. So there could be many different combinations of overextensions, high, high, low. High, low, high is also fascinating because it's not used every day, then suddenly it comes up strongly. The big question is, what is the impact of your overextensions? How does it impact your own well-being? Now, I've worked with this person. It was a leader that I've been coaching. And, we spoke about his legacy. Before our coaching, he was like, well, no, it's fine. I get the results. We're highly profitable. I don't give a damn. People are at work to get the job done. Don't tell me I have to care. But when we looked at the impact around his personal health, his relationships at home as well as at work, his legacy, what are people saying about him when he's not, in view? He got to see that there was impact. What's the impact also, or consequences of effectiveness and performance? Because what research has absolutely shown that when we are overextended and come in too tough, we don't just change our neural circuitry, we change the circuitry of those people around us. And where there's not trust in the system, people will not perform. We actually crush creativity and agility. People can no longer think. If they don't feel safe or they don't trust the people they're with, they cannot activate their brain. There's like this compensatory system with the prefrontal cortex and limbic brain. There's always a master of one of them. And once the prefrontal cortex, the thinking brain, is flipped, the limbic brain is out, the creativity just kind of is so suppressed. People will just do enough. There'll be a lot of politicking behavior. When he saw this, he realized, and he's on his journey of building collaboration, intimacy. So anyway, you look at your overextensions, they all play out in different ways. And in your profile, you'll see the definitions of the overextended self. And it's up to you to see, well, what's the impact of that? Remember, sometimes the overextension will work for you because it's all about, are you using it consciously? Do you dial it up for an effect? Or is the behavior controlling you? And I find it's really useful afterwards by checking in with your own emotions. Do I feel slightly regretful, guilty? I've got to go fix it now. Then you know that the behavior it controlled you and it's having a negative effect. But I think we know quite clearly whether it's working for us or not. So, we just need to ask those questions, go a level down to see, okay, what's the impact? Do I need to dial this down? And it really is about awareness. And then for me, the biggest tip, if I can give you, is if we are prone to this overextension, whether it's green, which becomes acquiescing and having no boundaries and giving our power away, or whether it's red and being too aggressive, or blue and being too distant and withdrawn, yellow too impulsive and chaotic, whatever they are, the breath is so powerful because it literally, if you flipped, it just brings you back. They say breathe in for 5, hold for 5, breathe out for 7. But it just literally can calm down the whole amygdala activation so that you're back in place, and then you can think and then strategize on the best action. So I'm a big believer in breath and encourage it. After all of this, you come to a point, back to your portrait. What do I tune up? What do I want to tune down? And they tend to all be around one key area. So even though I've got kind of 6 arrows going on here, it's all around one goal. And we've included in your portrait the GROWS model. So the clear goal here for this person could be, I need to increase my value and understanding of my team members. I need to demonstrate that I need to empower, and I need to delegate and empower so that I can grow my team and we can work collaboratively together. And then it'll be, well, how are you going to do it and how are you going to measure it? And all of that would be connected to these key points around controlling the reds. And, you know, you can either look at pulling them back or you look at doing the opposite. So for here, for example, it's much easier to look at how do I increase intimate, which is listening and having one-to-one conversations. Could be, well, okay, every week I'm going to agree to I'm going to have a one-to-one meeting with each of my team members. And in that meeting, I'm just going to say, how are you doing? Tell me about your week. Not going to lay on the tasks. I'm just going to listen and then say, so how can I support you? And it's all about creating new habits that serve you and serve them. So that's all I wanted to share. And I hope that gives you enough of a starting point, if anything. And love to unmute and just to hear a few points or any questions.